What is going on, everybody? The original Mako back with some more Gunfire Reborn content, and today we finally have the new character tier list. They've been out for a while. I've had a chance to mess around with both these characters, and the other character that got some big changes was the bird, and I've had a chance to mess around with him a little bit since the new DLC, so now I feel it's time to finally get these characters back onto a tier list, re-rank them, and just go through it, talk about it, and I'm sure start some arguments as per usual. So, that being said, if you enjoy this video, be sure to like it, comment, let me know what changes you would make, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the content coming your way, and if you want to see more of me, check out the links down below, the Kick streaming link and the Twitch streaming link. I'm streaming on both right now. Once again, we need about 40 more followers on Kick to reach affiliate, so I'd really appreciate it if you check that out. But I stream way more often than these videos come out, so if you want to see some more content, I would really appreciate y'all checking that out. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the tier list, shall we? So, a lot of these characters I haven't really touched too much in the new update, since the new DLC, because they didn't make many changes to them, if any. And yeah, they're probably going to end up, I mean, once again, I'm not like, this is just going to be a pure going through every character again and putting them on the list where I genuinely feel like they are on this list. Overall as a character, and you know, there's been a little, in my opinion, a little bit of power creep, so we might see some different rankings, starting with our boy the dog. Great character. I have a ton of fun playing this character, arguably my favorite character overall, but not the best character overall. For Albi, I am going to put him at B. And the only reason, oh, I kind of forgot to do this, but that's okay. I'll do this while I'm talking. The only reason that I'm going to put him as a B is mainly, there's mainly just one, honestly. And it's because you have to remember, I play this game at the highest difficulty at all times, right? So his shield is so small of a shield that one hit from any enemy anywhere is breaking the shield. And then if you happen to get hit by something else, you're losing health. You lose out on health a lot more often with this character. And health loss, remember, is permanent. Now, the dog does have a lot of good ways to recover that health, but from a base standpoint, he's more difficult because you have to focus on health regeneration. A lot of characters you don't, because you have enough of a shield buffer where you're less subject to losing your permanent health. But with this character, you have to have some sort of health regeneration if you're playing at a high level. And the other reason I think I'm going to put him at B, I would love to have him at A. The only other reason is that explosions in general are a weaker build than most others. Explosive weapons just aren't as good as a lot of other weapons. The builds in general aren't as strong as other builds. The one exception to this is going atomic bomb and doing the grenade build. That's one of the strongest ones, one of the easiest ones in the game, because you just press one button and then you win the game. But all of the other builds, and even a lot of the dual wielding builds, aren't as good as some of the other characters' builds in the game. So that's why I'm going to put him at B. I love this character. Like I said, he's arguably my favorite character to play because I love explosion builds personally, but they are a little bit underpowered compared to some of the other characters in the game. So that's why I'm going to have him at a B tier. Next up, we have the cat. Tried and true, with the part of the first two characters to ever be in the game. When I first started playing this game, these were the only two characters you could play. And the cat for a while was kind of meh, not nearly as fun, and whatever. The cat has grown into an A tier character. So, the big downside to the cat, in my opinion, is movement speed. You're very slow, and movement speed is very important in this game. You need to have movement speed because it makes things easier to dodge. Movement speed is like a necessity. It's one of the biggest. Not having movement speed is one of the biggest downsides you can have on a character. So let me explain why the cat's an A still. You also get one of the most important things built into your kit, which is elemental damage, and guaranteed elemental damage consistently with the corrosive grenades. And these corrosive grenades will cause enemies to slow down as well. But the big thing for the cat is because having that built-in corrosion means you just need to find either a fire weapon or a lightning weapon, and all of a sudden you have good elemental synergies. You're doing some of the different elemental effects that you can do in the mashups of miasma and explosions from fire and corrosion and lightning and corrosion. And dare I say that miasma, lightning plus corrosion is one of the most consistent ways to beat nightmare mode. I mean, it's really, really useful. I guess it was one of the most, there's, with the new characters, some other ways. But anyway, elemental builds will always be very, very consistent. I feel like the cat is one of the more consistent characters you can have. You're not going to have super high highs for the most part, but you're also not really going to have a lot of low, like you're going to be very consistent with this character because of how consistent and good elemental builds are, and you always have elemental built in with the grenades. You also have one of the better ascensions in the game, which is Hex Smoke, where you are, every time an enemy gets hit by your corrosive grenades, they are taking more damage and dealing less damage. And reducing the amount of damage that enemies do at high levels is really good. It's very useful. You're not going to be losing as much of your permanent health, and it's extremely convenient. So I think that the cat gets to be an A tier. Next up, we have a very, very interesting one that I really got to think about here. The bird. The bird got some pretty massive changes to some abilities during the DLC, and they really wanted to push people towards shotgun builds. However, they did change his leap build, and originally when reading it I thought it was going to be worse. It's actually not worse at all. It's better than it was. Oh, this is such a tough one for me. But if I'm thinking about where I'm going to put some other characters, I have to put the bird in A, above the cat, for sure, but into A tier. Here's why. The number one thing that gives the bird an advantage over every other character is the bird uses armor instead of shield. And armor is something that you can get back as soon as you need it, essentially. So you lose some armor, you're like, oh shoot. Normally, you'd have to wait for your shield to start regenning on other characters. On this character, you just press the E button, and if you're near an enemy or destructible or anything, you'll get your armor back. The other big thing that sets this character apart is the iframes that you get when you press the E button. So not only can you press the E button to get your armor back, but you can press the E button and you are invulnerable while you are in the air. This is why the iframes are the main reason this character is almost an S tier character, because some of the other characters we're going to talk about have some of the most wild and easy runs that you can possibly have. But when you're doing a leap run, if you get good scrolls, good ascensions, and you're doing a full leap build for the bird, it is arguably easier than all of the other characters' runs that you can have. The other characters are like one-shotting things and killing almost instantly and all that, which is fine. But with the birds, the whole goal of the leap build on the bird is to be constantly spamming E. Like, you're never stopping your leap. And if you're never stopping your leap, the amount of time that you can actually even take damage during a run is almost zero. There's like split seconds of time where enemies can hit you here and there, but if you're able to just spam E over and over and over, you're constantly in your iframe period. So you can't even get hit. And the times when you do get hit for maybe half a second, and you're leaping again and getting your armor back, which makes the game just so much easier. And like I said, the iframes and armor combined make this character have a lot of really good things, and they're just better than other characters for sure. Next up, this is gonna be a good one. Some of you might click off the video here. That's fine. We all have our own opinions. I'd like to remind you this is an opinion-based tier list, and a lot of you will have this character in a very different place than I will. I have the Tiger in C, and here's why. Tiger's good. The Tiger's a good character. Don't get me wrong. Tiger's a good character. I don't think this character is, in my opinion, it's not my playstyle. It's not very fun to play at all. The only build I ever enjoyed with the Tiger was when you could abuse the concealed ammo with this character and do unspeakable amounts of damage, like explosion damage, over and over again. That can't happen anymore, and it hasn't been able to happen for like a year. And ever since that build went away, I find it horribly boring to play this character, and I don't like doing it. I think the character's good. You're going to win a lot of runs. You can do a lot of high damage. For me personally, I lose a lot of runs on the Tiger because I don't like playing that playstyle. I don't have fun with it. So I just try to avoid the Tiger. I'm not a big fan. I don't think this character, compared to pretty much every other, I would rather play, I think, every single other character in this game besides the Tiger. And that is my personal opinion. Take it or leave it, but there it is. So I'm going to put the Tiger in C. I know a lot of you guys love the Tiger. Believe me, I get this all the time, but this is just my tier list. That's just my opinion. Next up, we have the Bunny. And the Bunny... let me try to think where I want to put the Bunny. I love the Bunny. Right there with the dog as my top two favorite characters. Like I said, they're probably interchangeable. Any of those could go as my favorite character on a given day. However, where do I want to put the Bunny? I think I'm gonna put the Bunny at the bottom of A tier right now. I maybe could go top of B, maybe. It just kind of depends. But I think the Bunny's a really, really good character. The problem with the Bunny is a lack of I guess, diversity in builds. Now, a lot of characters have their go-to builds, but you can also kind of mess around with some other builds and usually be pretty successful. With the Bunny, I mean, it's so... It's not really a fair argument, I guess, but you're using the exact same, like, you're looking for the same, pretty much 3 weapons, like, every time. You are either going all in on your E or all in on your Q, and depending on which one you do, you don't really want to switch up your weapon pool very much because the same weapons synergize with both different builds. And the build overall is really good. The fact that you have built-in movement speed into the character is amazing. Obviously, like I said earlier, movement speed is like one of the most important things you can have. So having that built in is super nice. And the builds end up being really, really good. Not as consistent as the cat. And once again, you're not getting the armor and iframes that the bird gives you. And if the Bunny was a little more diverse and maybe slightly more consistent, I would move her up the A tier a little bit and wouldn't even be thinking about her in B tier. But I think the Bunny's an A tier character. Really good. Not very hard to use, which is also, you know, a positive compared to some other characters. But the Bunny is definitely someone that I would put in the A tier character, or in the A tier list. Next up, we have the Hedgehog. Now, fun fact about the Hedgehog, I haven't touched him since the new DLC, and since he came out, I have barely touched him. He is my least played character by far. Not my least favorite, my least played. I just, once again, similar to the Tiger had a period where I was playing the Tiger constantly because the concealed ammo build worked and it was very fun. The Hedgehog never had that kind of period for me. The Hedgehog came out, I played him to understand him, and that was about it, really. I don't particularly love any of his builds. I will say they are very, very good. I think in terms of like build consistency and things you can do, I think he's above the dog. I mean, once again, the thing that the dog has going is Atomic Bomb, but you've also got like infinite punching build on the Hedgehog which goes crazy. So in terms of a character, I think the Hedgehog is definitely a better character. But I don't think the Hedgehog's an A tier. Once again, I don't find him particularly enjoyable to play for me. And mainly because of that, I'm not going to push him any higher than a B tier. But I do have to give some credit where credit's due. I think a lot of his builds are better than and more consistent than what you can do with the dog. Once again, to get like an explosion build going or a dual wield build going, you have to have some very specific pieces fall into place, whereas with the Hedgehog, it seems like it's more of a free willy type situation where you just kind of, you have more consistency with your different runs. So that's why I'm going to put the Hog in B. I'm not going to spend too much time on him because once again, I can't speak to him very well since I don't play him as often at all. But that's where I think he is, in my opinion. Next up, we have the Monkey. We're getting to the newer characters now, the ones from the last DLC. The Monkey, for me, is going to be... Oh, this is a tough one. The Monkey is like flirting on this line right here between B and the top of C. I'm going to put him at the top of C, and here's why. So the Monkey has some fun builds. You know, you can obviously pump up your weapon damage. If you go for the Kujal route, his E ability, you can get some good damage out of it. It's a little bit more restrictive with how you have to play, but you can get some really fun builds out of that. But nothing that I've done with this character, like, I think every other character I've had a run that has been like jaw-dropping to me with damage numbers or just how crazy fast or how much health you have or whatever. The Monkey, I don't feel like I've ever had a run where I have just been wowed by what has happened. So I think this is one of those scenarios where this is a good character. You're going to get a lot of good stuff out of it. Obviously, the ability to constantly be buffing your weapons means you can play with just about any weapon you want if you're going that route, which makes him extremely diverse. But you're not going to get, like, you're not going to be super blown away most of the time by what you're doing with this character compared to some of the things you can do with other characters. This is like a very consistent, but not like breaking character, not like a game breaking character you're going to have, you know, compared to some of the other ones. So that's why I think I'm putting him at the top of C. I mean, he could maybe find his way to the bottom of B here, but I think top of C is where he goes. Once again, in relation to these other characters, I think this makes sense. Next up, we have the Fox. And I mean, easily. This character is, if we're going raw damage output, the Fox clears every other character and then some. It's not even a competition if it's just raw damage output. The Fox would be like 2 tiers ahead of everybody. It's unbelievable the amount of damage and clearing that you can do with this character's E. Her Q is okay. You can do a Q build that works. It's not going to be mind-boggling by any stretch of the imagination. But her E ability, if you go all in on that, then by the end of the game, you are basically clearing full rooms with one press of the E button, doing millions of damage every E button press. It's crazy, and it's not very hard to do. With the amount of, there's a lot more things in the game that benefit your skills than your weapons. So if you're a character that specializes in skill damage, such as the Fox, it's not very hard to get your build going. And once again, this is one of those things where if you really want to just curb stomp some enemies, then just play the Fox, and then within your first probably 3 runs, you will get a very good E build going, and you will stomp and clear, and it'll be easy mode, and just so goddamn simple, because you just press E, you let it charge, then you left click, and then you win the game. The Fox is so utterly broken with how much damage you can do with her that she has to be an S tier, and there's no conceivable way you could possibly not have the Fox in S tier. I think it's I mean, obviously people will. There's probably people out there that are like me with the Tiger. There are probably people that just don't like this character and wouldn't put her in S tier. But the damage you can do is ridiculous, just ridiculous. I think actually, to put it in perspective, I've played almost 1,100 hours of Gunfire Reborn. The Fox has like my top 3 highest damage runs of all time. So, yeah. Anyway, next up, we finally get to the brand new characters, the ones just from this most recent DLC, and the ones that everybody is waiting to see where I'm going to slap them here. So we've got the Owl first. The Owl, in my opinion, this is going to be interesting. In my opinion, the Owl's an A tier character. And right there. And let me explain, because a lot of you might have the Owl in S, and I've seen a lot of people in my comments talking about how much they enjoy the Owl. That's great. Love that. The Owl is good. The Owl's Q build is really good. High damage potential. Your cards are like auto tracking to enemies. There's not much input from you that you have to do. And like I said, the damage output is just insanely good on the Owl with the Q build. Here's why I don't have the Owl higher on the list. A, when the Owl came out, he was extremely confusing to play. If you were a new player getting in around this DLC, you wanted to try this character out, good fucking luck. You were going to have no chance of understanding much of what this character does at all, which is obviously partially like a language barrier issue where some things may have gotten translated weird, but it is still like a barrier to playing this character, is not understanding it. There were a lot of people before I released my Owl guide that had said like, hey, yeah, I just didn't even touch this character because I didn't want to bother figuring out what any of this meant. And I was like, that makes sense. It's hard to be a good character if less people are playing you because you're just confusing. And there's a lot going on with this character, so there is a lot to understand. The other reason I'm not going to have the Owl higher is because of the E ability. Now, the E ability is where most of the confusion came from, and the E build, in my opinion, is not great. I understand. I've had a lot of people tell me, well, if you do this and you do this, then by the end of the game, you're getting all legendary Astro Houses, and then you're just sweeping through with your E over and over. Great. That's by the end of the game. Most characters, are fully online with their build by the time that they get to the beginning of the third area. Most. Because that's when you get your third spiritual blessing, and usually by that point your build has clicked, you know what you're doing, and you are very well into your build by now. You're doing what you want to be doing. You might need 1 to 2 more specific pieces that you're looking for to really tie everything together, or you're looking for some extra stuff that's just going to end up being the cherry on top in terms of your damage output. However, with the Owl's E, if you're going for an E build, it feels like so weak early in the game, like going all the way up through the 3rd area. And it's like, unless you've got those legendary Astro houses, it's so hard to do consistently decent damage. It just doesn't feel as... It's hard to get a really good build going with the E. You can, but it's hard to do, which is why I'm not going to move this character up. I mean, these two are kind of... you could maybe swap these around, but once again, the bird's got the leap build, which once again makes it almost impossible for you to even take damage, which is ridiculous. The bird has iframes, even if you're not doing a leap build. The bird has armor, which is better than shield in every stretch of the imagination. And the bird also has the shotgun build, which if you're not doing a leap build, a shotgun build is still really good on the bird and very fun to do. So That's why I think the bird is better than the owl. But the owl, don't get me wrong, is still a very good character. And if you're going for the Q, you're going to be doing a ton of damage, for sure. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Panda. Now, if you've watched some of my previous videos or you have watched me stream, you will know where this character is going. Bottom of the barrel. No. This is the best character in the game. This is just the best character in the game, flat out. And... obviously, let me explain. So, first things first, reminder here. This is a tier list coming from somebody who plays nothing but the highest difficulty solo. I will occasionally play multiplayer, but not very often. I'm almost always playing single player, highest difficulty. The fact that you have a mechanical robot mech thing that will revive you as long as it's alive is by far the single most broken thing in this game. And it's just like a passive that comes with this character. It is by far the single most broken thing in this game. Because when you're playing on Reincarnation 8 and you've got all the extra modifiers on to make it harder, you can die in 2 to 3 shots easy, and you're dead. Which, that can happen to anybody. You make one wrong mistake, one bad thing happens, you get caught in one corrosive pool, all of a sudden you're dead. And you might have had a crazy run going, but once again, you just made that one mistake. This character makes all of those mistakes fine. You can make those mistakes, because the robot will revive you. I think there's only been one case, and I've played a good amount of the Panda so far. I think there's only been one scenario where I wasn't able to be revived because the robot was dead as well. Only one. Other than that, the mech has saved my Panda runs an unbelievable amount of times, and is just such a good character. That alone would put her in S tier probably, but then let's add on top of it the fact that if you build into any of her 3 trees, you can have an insanely dominant and broken run. The tree where you focus on the Q ability, her missiles, you basically have an atomic bomb type of run with that. There's a couple of ascensions you can get, and obviously some scrolls to help, where you basically have an atomic bomb run, but with her missiles and with your mech also shooting missiles, and you also have the ability to be revived, and it's just as good as atomic bomb, pretty much. The only downside is you might occasionally run out of missiles, but not for very often if you've got your ascensions in the right spot. So that build is ridiculous. Then you go to the next tree, where it's all focused on the mech and buffing the mech. If you do that, then A, the mech will have enough health if you're going all yellow tree, where the mech is never going to die, so you will almost always be able to get revived. Like, the mech will have so much health, it's ridiculous. And B, the mech is going to be doing unbelievable amounts of damage and soloing rooms easily and then in turret mode, soloing bosses. Well, maybe not soloing, but doing majority of the damage against bosses. And it clears runs extremely fast, and it's super, it's not very hard to get going, but it gets the job done very consistently. And then the last tree, the blue tree, is where it focuses more on weapon upgrading, and specifically pistols. And there are some good pistols in this game. There's a Scorching Rounds, there's all of the kunai, which are already good, but especially good when they're getting consistently buffed. And this is her weakest run, but you can still get a pistol that is doing unbelievable amounts of damage later in the game, by the time you get to the third area. Just soloing so fast, especially with like the lightning kunai is a big one. So the fact that you can absolutely dominate with her first two trees and then still have a very, very good one with her third tree is extremely, like, that's rare. Most characters have one tree where you very much want to focus on that tree for the most optimal. For this character, I mean, her yellow tree and her red tree are both extremely optimal, and the blue one is slightly less optimal, but still a very good one to mess around with. Once again, I mentioned this earlier, I have done thousands and thousands of runs, have 1,100 hours in this game. My top two fastest boss kills are from the Panda. Fastest final boss kills, top two quickest, are with the Panda. One with the atomic bomb missile build, two with the mech just slamming the boss. So all of that combined with the fact that you have a robot to res you all the time, I think makes this the best character by far. I think there's like a good gap. Like, I'd probably maybe put the Fox over here in terms of the gap between these two. Now the Fox is still really, really good, but just the added bonus of having that constant being able to be rezzed is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's why I have the Panda at the top of this tier list. But there we have it, everybody. There is the character tier list. I'm glad I finally got to make this, and you know, these new characters have been unbelievable. Both of them have been really, really good and fun to play. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying them. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm sure there are plenty of you that disagree with some of these, so I'm excited to hear it. But yeah, be sure you check the links down below as always. Like I said, if you want to see more of me, you can check out the Twitch or Kick links, both of them preferably, where I'm live almost every day during the week. Although I do have a trip coming up, so I'm not going to be live for like a week and a half while I'm on that trip. So that's kind of a sidebar conversation. But anyway, hopefully you'll have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. I love each and every one of your faces, and I will catch you all in the next video.